Good afternoon, members. I declare there is a quorum, and I call to order the meeting. In the 2025 legislative session, as at the previous meeting, 21 items have been approved, with a total funding amount of $91,068,400,000. On the agenda today, there are two papers for discussion, all rolled over from the previous meeting on the 18th of June. The funding amount involved in the two funding proposals is $658.6 million. If all the funding proposals are approved today, that would bring the total amount of approved items to 23, with a total funding amount of $91,727 million, excluding the $27,340.7 million for land acquisition and computerization program. The total funding amount for works projects approved is $91,727 million. I remind members, if you have any direct or indirect pecuniary interest concerning the item for discussions today, please disclose the nature of such interest according to Rules of Procedure 83A. I also bring to your attention Rules of Procedure 84 concerning voting in matters in which you have direct pecuniary interest in. Item 2, PWSC 2025-611 369 AP, a third classroom primary school at Site E2, developments of Anderson Road Quarry Site, Sai Kung. The paper invites members to recommend to the FC to upgrade the project to Category A at an estimated cost of $482.6 million in money of the day prices. This subcommittee has started discussion of this item at the previous meeting on the 18th of June. We will now resume the discussion of this item. A list of the government officials attending today's meeting has been circulated among members. I will not introduce them one by one. We welcome the administration for attending the meeting. At the last meeting, one member has already asked his question. There were 6 other members who indicated their wish to speak. I will now first invite Mr. Andrew Lam to speak. 4 minutes. Chairman, 2 questions. The first one is simple. That there is no on-site staff for the project. Why is that? Second question, in terms of fitting of the project. I'm not saying the lump sum is expensive. However, there is always discrepancies in terms of the building services. Why is that? Now, compared with the two projects, for example, the one in Shui last time, there's always major discrepancy in terms of the fit-out of the project. So in terms of ventilation and so on, there is major discrepancies in terms of building service standard. Now, under MIC, MIMAP is also an important component. So is there a direction about the standard of building services? If there is a lot of variation in design, that would affect the standardization of the process. So will the government consider issuing directions in terms of the design for building services, or is there already some guidelines? Please switch on. Ms. Athena Fung's, the project director's microphone. Thank you. I will take the first question. For the second one, I will invite the colleagues from the Architectural Services Department to answer. Now, on why there is a discrepancy in the payments for the contractors. For this particular project, the RHSD has completed the detailed design internally, so there is an amount of saving achieved. But that's not the ordinary practice for the RHSD to formulate the design themselves. So the internal manpower cost of the RHSD has been excluded from the price tag. The arrangement was so because in the fourth quarter of 2022, there was a tender returned or withdrawn. At the time, we tendered out the project together with the secondary school adjacent. But there was no interest in the market. That is, there is no tender that fulfills our expectation. Then the RHSD has deployed a team to complete the detailed design for the project. So the arrangement was a bit different from the usual practice. Ms. Fung. Thank you. Now on MEMAP, or building services, there are differences in the Anderson Road project and the Fanling project. For the Anderson Road project, it is more expensive. Now the site is some 7,000 square meters large, but there are some slopes. So the buildable surface area is just some 5,000 meters square, lower than the standard for a 30 classroom school, that is 6,000 meters square. There is a lot of limitation concerning construction. So for underground utilities as well as drainage and electric and mechanical fittings, it is more challenging. For slopey areas, we may have to bypass the slopes to connect the utilities. The alignments and the lengths of the ducts would be longer. That explains the more expensive price. And also, the water from the sanitary features would be recycled and then used for flushing in the same district. So there is an additional equipment for collecting the wastewater. Now for MEMAP, we are already using the MEMAP building approach. That includes air filtration units, pumping units, and also fire hose cabinets. As long as the site conditions are ideal, we will use the MEMAP components. Next, Ms. Connie Lam. Thank you. Reprovisioning the Sheung Looking to Primary School in Sai Kung is a good idea. As a member of the district, I support it. Now, the Looking to Primary School is a DSS school, a direct subsidy scheme school. It can enroll students from other districts. So after the reprovision, will the school serve the residents at Anderson Road with a priority? Now, what is the ratio of students from Sheung being enrolled in the school in the past 5 years? After reprovisioning the school, the original school premise at Polam Estate would be used for building public housing. So does the government have a specific timetable and also the amount of PRH to be built to ensure that the original sites will not be left vacated for a long time? Under Permanent Secretary, PAS. Thank you. According to our communication with the Looking to School, they will continue to pivot on serving the students in Sai Kung. More than 70% of their students are from Sai Kung, while some 27% is from the Kwun Tong district. According to the school's estimation, since the new site is also in the same area, they expect the composition of the students after the reprovisioning will be the same. Concerning the school premises, upon resuming the original school site, we will review whether there is still a need for primary and secondary school in the district according to the central allocation system. Now, it is already decided that the site will be used for public housing purpose. We will facilitate the replanning procedure as soon as possible. Is there a timetable for the delivery of the public housing units? There will be 135,000 additional population in the area, so is that really needed? We don't have information yet. Next, Ms. Lillian Kwok. Thank you, Chair. I am worried about the road condition after the reprovisioning, or the traffic condition. Now, at Ontat Estate on Anderson Road, during morning peak hours, there is some congestion already. Now, you are now placing the access to the school at a dead end, that is a roundabout. There are some similar schools in Sheung with a similar design with accesses placed in a cul-de-sac. I understand that near the new school site, there will be a new secondary school being built in the future. So we have to ensure that even when works are ongoing, students can get to school without a congestion. If there are a score of school buses traveling on the road at the same time, it will be very bad. Now, if the government has stepped in, then schools would stagger their morning school hours to avoid congestion. But in a few years' time, that the situation would worsen. So, do you have any plan? Ms. Leung? Thank you, Ms. Lillian Kwok, for your concern. We do want to plan ahead for possible traffic congestion in the future. So from a design point of view, school buses and private cars can enter the school campus for loading and for boarding of students. And like Ms. Lillian Kwok said, during the morning and afternoon peak hours, there will be a staggered arrangement for school buses to pick up the students. There will also be traffic wardens directing the traffic. We will require the primary school to coordinate the timing of schools and events with the secondary school next door. Now, according to a survey conducted by the Looking to Primary School, more than 90% of students would take school buses, public transport, or even walk to school. That would reduce the pressure on the road nearby. And also, we will continue to communicate to the school concerning the situation.
Chair, I have a follow-up question. Ms. Leung said that most school buses will drop off the students in the campus. I think it is possible with reference to the plan, but have you conducted any projections on how many school buses can be accommodated? We're talking about 19-seater buses, so there are probably more buses of smaller capacity. So one of these buses would already be a 27-seater bus size that we had before, the kind. So have you conducted relevant assessments? Ms. Wendy Leung. Thank you. We have had regard to the Hong Kong planning standards and guidelines in providing the drop-off bays. We have adopted the maximum, and the drop-off bays can accommodate a 60-seater coach. The smaller school buses can drop off students within the campus quickly, of course, as long as administratively the staff members of the school can keep order of such buses. We will maintain communication with the school staff on this. They haven't answered my question. How many school buses can they accommodate within the campus? If they have like 20 odd buses coming at the same time, can they accommodate every one of those buses? I believe the school would have to communicate with the school bus companies so that they will stagger the hours or the times the buses are going to arrive to make sure they can accommodate all the buses. I hope that you will conduct comprehensive surveys, and they have 10 odd buses, I believe, the primary school. If they arrive at the same time, you may not be able to accommodate all the buses, and the road outside the school is a single lane road and a narrow one. If there is congestion, it will extend to other road sections. I'm not sure if you have even been there at 7 in the morning and see what it is really like. You should perhaps visit the site between 7:45 and 8:15 in the morning to see what the real situation is. And you need to also look at how on Tat Estate or on Anderson Road, how many school buses there are and how congested the roads are. You need to conduct visits before you determine the way forward. Thank you. I hope the administration can keep liaising with the management of the school to flesh out the arrangements. I know that you have 3 large drop-off bays, though. Thank you. Mr. Benson, look. I note for the Anderson Road site in Sai Kung, upon full commissioning, we will have 30,000 people living there. And I know that many of those would be the core families, the smaller households. So I do support the fact that we are reprovisioning the primary school here. But I note in paragraph 25, we talked about some greening features and energy efficient features to be put in place. We will use some renewable energy technologies, and the payback period is 8 years. We will have some energy savings as well. We have demand control of supply air being one of the technologies, but I'm sure many parents and children know no matter what you do with the air conditioning, it is quite cold. Even in the electrical complex, it is said that we can adjust the temperature, but in summers it would be too cold still. So here you're talking about how we have 10% energy savings and a payback period of about 8 years. How can you make sure this is actually achieved? Thank you. I'll have the RHSD officer answer the relevant questions. Thank you. For these features, we have to comply with the 2021 code to make sure there is at least a 10% energy savings. So what the technology mentioned by the member, demand control or supply air, as well as the other technologies mentioned in the paper, energy reclaim of exhaust air, energy efficient lift system, all of these will help us achieve 10% energy savings in the annual energy consumption. As for how we can make sure we are achieving such targets, we will collect relevant data and analyze relevant data, and we will share the data with the relevant bureaus and departments so that they can conduct further analyses. These figures are calculated, but these are just estimates. There are multiple factors at play that would determine the actual figures, such as usage of the school or the other factors. Right now, from our estimates, we have a payback period of about 8 years. Thank you. Yes, Mr. Benson, look. I believe the figure is derived from past data because these are estimates. It is only when the school is commissioned that we can know whether energy is saved. In order to make sure we are saving money, there has to be continuous monitoring and implementation. And since the Bureau is going to interact with school personnel in future, I think we can get more information, and I hope in other works projects of the government we can have similar interactions. Thank you. Mr. Louis Leung. Thank you. Chair. We have a project of a 30 classroom primary school on Anderson Road. I support this proposal, especially because we have used internal resources for project management, and we have been able to save $2.5 million in project management costs. I definitely appreciate that. I want to ask about enclosure 1, the site plan. To the right, we have some very small characters. I'm sorry, my vision is not as good as before. Let me try to read this. This project would include a refuse collection point and a recycling store. We have an asterisk here, and then we have below that a pound sign, and it said under construction. So I want to ask, the refuse collection point, it is not related to this school proposal, right? It's just for reference that we know there is a refuse collection point nearby. It is not that this refuse collection point is included in the project, right? Mr. Louis Leung's understanding is correct. This refuse collection point serves the whole area. All right. Understood. So the refuse collection point is included in the housing project, not the school project. All right. Thank you. Mr. Lee Chen Kung. I note we have a primary school project here in Sai Kung, and we are going to make use of a MIC method for construction. I also note enclosure 1, we have a secondary school, a proposed secondary school nearby. I want to make sure that there is coordination. And if the secondary school is going to be constructed later than the primary school, will that cause noise nuisance to primary school students? I also note that the refuse collection point is right beside the primary school. Will there be odor issues that will cause a nuisance and hygiene issues for the primary school students? Thank you. Thank you. The proposed secondary school nearby is for the reprovisioning of Shao K1 East Government Secondary School. We are currently tendering for the site. We will not have a secondary school that will tie in with the primary school, unfortunately. But like I said, the secondary school is just a reprovisioned school of a school nearby. As for refuse collection point, we will make sure to minimize the impact costs to surrounding residents and students, especially for students. The classrooms will be located far away the refuse collection point, and the northwestern side, they will have the assembly hall there. There will be less windows as it is an assembly hall. As for odor issues, potentially, we will make sure the classrooms again are located far away from the refuse collection point. I'm sorry, but there is a running track. If people are running there, wouldn't they be able to smell the odor? They're opposite the road, at least. Since you are tendering for the secondary school site anyway, why not do bulk tendering to save costs? Ms. Wendy Leung, we did consider this in 2022, which was why we tried to tender for both sites at the same time, but we did not have a successful bid. So they did that before, it's just that there wasn't sufficient interest. If members have no other questions, I now put this proposal to vote. Members in favor of the proposal in PWSC 2025-2611, please raise your hands. Members against, please raise your hands. None. I believe the members who voted on the item were all in favor of the proposal. The proposal is endorsed. Now, on whether there should be further discussion of the item by the Finance Committee, in accordance with paragraph 41A of the Public Works Subcommittee procedure, I put the following question to vote. The subcommittee recommends further discussion by the Finance Committee of the proposal in PWSC 2025-2611 that was endorsed by the subcommittee. I remind members that if the question is agreed to, it means that the subcommittee recommends that the Finance Committee further discuss the item. If the question is negative, it means that the subcommittee does not recommend further discussion of the item by the Finance Committee. Members in favor, please raise your hands. Members against, please raise your hands. I believe the members who voted on the question were against the question. The question is negative. That is, the subcommittee does not recommend further discussion of item PWSC 2025-2611 by the Finance Committee. This is the end of the discussion of this agenda item. I thank officers for attending this item. Let's move on to the next agenda item.
Item 3, Project 90TI. Public transport interchange at Sheung Shui areas 4 and 30, Site 1, Phase 2. Reference paper, PWSC 2025-612. The paper proposes to upgrade Project 90 TI to Category A at an estimated cost of $176 million in money of the day prices. The government has consulted the panel on housing at the meeting on the 2nd of December last year. Members supported the administration to submit the funding proposal for the consideration of this subcommittee. The reports of the salient points of the panel's discussion has been circulated for members' reference by email on the 16th of June. A list of the attending government officials has also been sent to members. I will not introduce the officials one by one. Please press the button if you want to speak. Now we have Mr. Chen Xiu-hong, Lam Chen-sing, and Mr. Holden Chow, 4 minutes for each. Mr. Chen Xiu-hong. Thank you, Chairman. I support in principle to build a public transport interchange in the areas in Sheung to tally with the delivery of the public housing projects nearby to cater for the some 20,000 additional population. Now my questions are, compared with other PDIs, including AT TI, that's the PDI in Fanling North, for that PDI, mechanical exhaust system is not required. So the project 800 TI is less expensive than 90 TI. So what's the condition for natural exhaust? Now, of course, not requiring mechanical exhaust system would be the best. But we're now facing more extreme weathers like extremely hot weather. With poor exhaust condition, drivers in the PDIs and also the passengers waiting for the transport would suffer health risks. So are you 100% sure that mechanical exhaust system is not required? Last time at the meeting of the panel on housing, I've raised a concern as well. There will be charging facilities in the PTI. We have been given a number. We haven't been given a number. The number depends on the number of routes planned for the PTI. Now, so far there will be 2 charging facilities for electric public buses, 2 for minibus, and some charging posts for taxis. Questions were asked whether those are fast charging posts. I don't see the breakdown in the budget for the project. Now you just reference on the project 83 Ti and compared to this project, that one is more expensive. So I want to know the exact cost for building the charging posts and also whether they are fast chargers. Now there is a 12.5% indirect cost in the project. I understand that both the FC and the PWSC understands that is the administrative cost for the housing authority for managing the project. Now just last Friday, the FC scrutinized a funding proposal for the radio communication system for the Marine Department. Now the administrative cost after collaboration has been reduced from $4 million to $2.7 million. We all applauded that because we need to save every dime we can. Now, starting from 2 years ago, I've been asking the government to review the 15% indirect cost. Now, I would take issue if you are just telling me that you are adopting the old figure without thinking. So we will review the percentage with the Housing Authority. Mr. Dominic Wong, Assistant Director. Thank you, Chairman, and thank you, Mr. Chen. First of all, the ventilation or the exhaust system. We don't have an exhaust system for this project. That is a fire safety installation. Now, all 4 sides of this site has good ventilation. So like the member said, we are relying on natural ventilation. Although we don't have an exhaust system, we do have a mechanical ventilation system. So exhaust system is not necessary, but we have the mechanical ventilation system harnessing the natural flow of air. Now about the EV charging facilities. Now all the E&M outlets have been designed and planned for in the infrastructure. Now there are 2 fast chargers for electric buses and 2 fast chargers for green public mini light buses, and also 3 for taxis. What's the price tag? Sorry, I don't have the figure right now. For your third question, the 12.5% fee for the housing authority. Now we have been working on this issue with the housing authority, and in the end we decided to keep the 12.5% fee with 4.8% for design, that's for contract management, and 4.8% for design and 4.9% for administrative expenses. Permanent Secretary, Mr. Lau Chun-kit. Mr. Ricky Lau, Permanent Secretary. Now, we do entrust some projects to other bodies like Housing Authority, NPLC, and also the operating fund they run. That comes with a cost, so we do provide for the indirect cost. Now, we are now working with the FSTPB to review the percentage of indirect fees paid to various bodies. We will be able to share the initial results of the review with you soon. Mr. Lam Chen Sing. Thank you, Chairman. I also have the same question with Mr. Chen Xiu-hong about the exhaust system. Paragraph 11, you said you will use some very effective ventilation system, that is energy-saving and high-efficiency mechanical ventilation system to save energy. So how much energy can you save, and can you quantify the cost saved? Now, besides cost effectiveness, we need the ventilation to be very effective as well. We are having more and more hot days. Just 10 minutes in the PTI would make one sweat. It is very stuffy inside PTIs. So how do you balance the cost effectiveness and the actual efficiency of the system? About passengers waiting for buses. In 2018, in the Ma On Shan Center, the government has built a PTI with cover. There are waiting rooms with air conditioning and seats, and even drinking fountains or vending machines for passengers to wait comfortably. That is great for the residents, especially for elderly people who go out on a grocery run. So the government consider doing the same for this PTI to make the wait more comfortable. Now about the progress of the work. Now last year, the PWSC has approved another project. Now there is a joint use building in the area. The work schedule was 5-year long because for the first 2 years, the project has to be connected with the podiums in the public housing estates nearby and also reserve a space for this PDI we are talking about. So were there some interfering between the two projects? If there is any delay in this PDI project, then the delivery of the joint use buildings and the other facilities will be delayed as well. So I hope that all these projects can be delivered on time. Thank you. Mr. Dominic Wong, Assistant Director of Housing. Thank you. Now on the ventilation system. Like I said, there are some advantages in this site. All four sides of the site have good ventilation. And also, we have adopted an energy-saving and self-sustaining mechanical ventilation system. It's just some $440,000 to build. And there are pollutant sensors and also real-time sensors for monitoring the concentration of pollutants in air, and then the ventilation system can be adjusted to work at various levels. It can save some 40% of energy each day, and we will be able to save some 400,000 kilowatt hours per year. Now about the air-conditioned waiting room for passengers. This site is not very spacious, so we have not adopted this design feature. About the PDI in Ma On Shan with the shelter and the air-conditioned waiting room, may I defer to the Transport Department for elaboration. About the joint use building, we are maximizing the use of this site. We are using the underground parts for the PDI, and above ground we have some PRH units and the joint use building. Now we will deliver these projects in phases. The PDI will be completed in 2027, and then the superstructure, including the housing development and the joint use building, will be completed in 2029 and 2030, so that the PDI can serve the public sooner. Mr. Ng from the Transport Department. Thank you, Chairman, and thank you, Mr. Lam. On your question about the air-conditioned waiting space, now actually, the phase 1 of the project has been delivered. That's the waiting room for buses. So we do have a phase 2 of the project. In the PDI near the taxi stand, we're going to deliver the phase 2 project. The Transport Department will review the overall efficiency of the two phases of the project and consider the situation you mentioned. I also have a similar question about charging facilities. It seems that the charging posts are not marked out on the building plan. On the building plan or the layout, we don't have the specific locations for the charging points yet. But you can see the parking bays for buses and taxis. There are 10 parking spaces, 2 with charging posts, and 2 charging posts and 3 charging posts for minibuses and taxis as well. So the charging posts will be installed in the parking bays. So will there be charging posts as the drop-off point? There will be a charging facilities nearby.
Mr. Holden Chow. Thank you, Chair. Let me first give a comment on ventilation. The PTI has different arrangements compared to other PTIs. They are making use of natural ventilation, saving some money. If the design is fixed, that it cannot be changed, I think the government needs to keep in view the implementation of the design, because I actually had experience in Tongchong. The bus station or the PTI was too hot and some fans had to be installed, and it can get really hot when waiting for buses. This is my comment. I also have a question. I note the site plan. The purple areas are franchise bus spaces for picking up. I understand them, but there is only one red area that is a franchise bus space for dropping off passengers. So there are 5 for picking up passengers, but only 1 for dropping off passengers. When it gets busy, dropping off passengers will take time too. So, has the government actually thought about putting in place more franchise bus spaces for dropping off passengers? Because when it gets busy, there can be quite a lot of buses waiting to drop off passengers. So is there any room for adjustment? I also want to say this. Choi Fai Street is the main access to the PTI. Should there be an emergency, will there be an emergency access? I do not see one here in the plan. I'm not sure if the government has planned one. It is just that it's not included in the site plan. Thank you. Mr. Wong. Thank you. For the ventilation system, apart from making use of the natural ventilation, we also have mechanical ventilation, but the mechanical ventilation system is energy saving and high efficient. As for the franchise bus spaces for picking up and dropping off passengers, you can see the site is quite small. We may not be able to add another drop-off bay, and we have adopted a peripheral sawtooth layout. We have tried to maximize use of the space. As for access to Choi Fai Street, it is indeed correct. We have only one vehicular access, that is the one on Choi Fai Street, but we have multiple pedestrian accesses. Thank you. Dr. Chen Han Pan. I think the design is quite good because it does not require passengers crossing the roads to get to a particular bus stop, and with the PTIs that need people crossing roads to get to a particular bus stop, we had seen accidents happening, which is not what we want. I want to ask, for PTIs or bus stops in general, we need to improve the waiting environment for passengers. Summers can get really hot these days in Hong Kong. If the space is covered, if you don't do well in ventilation, it can make people sweat a lot. So I want to ask, in the long term, will the government consider for the new PTIs, like the one in Ma On Shan, we will have some parts that are air conditioned so that people can come out when the buses arrive, but in the other times they can wait in air-conditioned areas. I also want to ask about the charging facilities. There are only 2 spaces for taxis. That is not enough. You have a queue that would have 5 spaces for charging. Why are there only 2 charging spaces for taxis? Thank you. Well, there are actually 3 spaces for taxis to charge. We believe 3 should be adequate. As for in the long term, whether we will have air-conditioned areas for people to wait in, I'll let the Transport Department colleague answer the relevant questions. Please turn on the microphone for the officer. Thank you, Chair. I would also like to thank Dr. Chen Han Pan for his concern on providing a comfortable waiting environment for passengers. As Mr. Wong said, the Ma On Shan PTI is the first phase trial scheme, and we'll have a second phase coming. After the project is completed, we will conduct a review. We want to make sure we strike a balance between providing a comfortable environment for passengers as well as trying to save costs. We will, if we can't, install fans just like what we did in Taiwan to make sure it is comfortable for passengers. Thank you. I do understand that there are 3 spaces for taxis to charge, but then there are actually 5 spaces for taxis to wait in. So why not make all 5 spaces appropriate for charging? Mr. Wong, I think we're going on a needs-based approach, and this is the arrangement we have derived after discussions with the Transport Department. I understand that this may be a consensus, but then we also know for a fact that we do not have enough charging spaces in Hong Kong for taxis. And you have to understand, in future, we may not accept registrations from diesel vehicles. So if we do not try to accommodate charging facilities in government facilities, it is hard for us to say that we are encouraging the use of EVs. Any response? We can communicate with the relevant departments. All right, thank you. Mr. Stanley, I also note the charging issue. We have all along been talking about how there is a shortage of charging facilities and that the project will take 5 years to complete. Have you conducted any objective assessments to make sure you're making good use of the space and that you have adequate charging facilities? What criteria have you adopted when making such assessments? Next, charging technology advances at a very quick pace. So how can you say 5 years later the charging facilities will meet our standards in terms of speed as well as energy efficiency? Is it the case that 5 years later you will find these facilities inadequate and you have to put in place new charging facilities? Thank you. Mr. Wong, Assistant Director of Housing. I thank member for your concern about charging facilities. We have actually referred to the guidelines of the EPD for newly constructed PTIs or bus terminals. We have some requirements to comply with, as well as quick charging for electric minibuses and facilities. We have referred to these various guidelines. We do note the members' concern. We will communicate with the EPD and Transport Department further to see if we can have more charging facilities. Thank you. Well, how about my question on whether your technology can stand 5 years later that wouldn't require you to remove the facilities and put in place new ones? Well, we will communicate with the relevant department on this. Thank you. Mr. Lee Sheung. For the construction of a new PTI to provide convenience to citizens, I definitely support that. But mainly we have the minibus trade suffering because they have declining business. Is it possible for us to incorporate commercial elements in bus terminals so that we can facilitate the minibus as well as franchise bus operators, because it is definitely hard on them? Can we allow them to put in place some ads? Can they sell coffee, for example? We have been talking about this for many times, but the government never did something similar. The government said before there wasn't enough space, but I can see enough space here. Why not have some light refreshments sold here for citizens or students? Thank you. Mr. Dominic Wong, Assistant Director. Thank you. You can see the PTI is right next to the public housing development, and there are some retail facilities on the ground level of the public housing development. As for inside the PTI, whether we can add some retail facilities, I will let the TD officer answer the relevant questions. Thank you. Well, this PTI site is actually quite small indeed. We do have some facilities for public transport operators, such as the regulator's offices, as well as toilets. It may be hard for us to put in place more facilities, but for other PTIs, if there is adequate space, we do encourage public transport operators, such as franchise bus operators, to provide more facilities to make more non-box fare revenue. Thank you. Mr. Chen Puleng, I note the design for the proposed PTI. There are only 5 franchise bus spaces for picking up passengers. And you are saying this public housing development would be for areas 4 and 30. So I want to ask, will you have other bus routes allocated here in future, or are you going to have 5 new routes in this PTI? I also note there are some columns in the PTI, so you have put in place spaces only for, say, parking. They are not for picking up or dropping off. I think there are inadequate parking spaces. Can you put in place more parking spaces if you can adjust the design a little? Mr. Dominic Wong. Thank you. Let me talk about what is available here. We have 5 parking spaces for 10 franchise buses. We have 5 pickup bays for franchise buses, 1 drop-off bay for franchise buses. This is the design. As for bus routes, the details, I'll let the transport department colleague answer the question. Thank you. I thank the member for his concern on future arrangements of the buses in the PTI. We are currently rationalizing the bus routes. We will have connection services to MTR stations. We will also have long-haul routes stopping here. We may consider having some existing bus routes stop at this PTI so that residents in areas 4 and 30 will have more bus services as well as taxi and minibus services.
But according to your assessments, there will be sufficient space for pickup and drop-off. Yes, there are some routes with less frequent departures. So if there is not sufficient space at the terminus, the buses can drop off their passengers beyond the drop-off point and then wait for the bay to be freed up. So all the members in the first round have spoken. Now, the second round, Mr. Chan Siu-hung, 3 minutes. Thank you, Chairman. I declare interest. I am a senior consultant of the CLP. Now, my question has been asked by the Chairman as well. There will be some basic charging facilities in the PDI. Even if they are fast charging posts, it still takes at least 10 to 30 minutes. Now, usually, in order to avoid blocking the subsequent vehicles, there would be an additional lane for vehicles to use when they are charging. So whether this PDI is small or big is up to your perspective. But I think an additional lane for vehicles being charged is important. That will help maintaining free access to vehicles behind. Second question. The administration hasn't answered me the question yet. Now, I think that's under building services. I think the charging facilities cost is under building services, under the $38.3 million price tag. So how much is actually spent on charging facilities? Now, at night, when there are no vehicles calling the PDI, the PDI should be opened up for vehicles or even commercial vehicles to park overnight. Now, the parking space ratio for commercial vehicle is 1 to 0.75. That is far under the standard. So for overnight parking, besides public transport, will commercial vehicles also be allowed in? Which government official will take the question? Director. Mr. Chan is right. We will have an additional lane. Now, if you refer to the plan, the charging posts for buses are at the rightmost side. Next to them is an extra lane. So the subsequent buses will not be blocked. Same for public minibuses and taxis. Concerning the ballpark figure of the cost, now it's $360 per square meter. That's the price. Sorry, can you repeat your answer? $360 per square meter for building service. Concerning overnight parking, I would defer to the TD. Mr. Chan, were you asking specifically for the building costs for the charging facilities? Yes, it has been subsumed under building services. I would like to have a breakdown. The $360 per square meter, that's available in the plan. There is a comparison between this project and that one in Sham Shui Po. So this time the building services cost $38.3 million. So can you give me a ballpark figure? I know you are just reserving sufficient funding for installation of charging posts to maintain some flexibility for different types of vehicles. So can you just give me a ballpark figure? Can the government official answer this question right now? We will supplement the information after the meeting. Yes, after the meeting, please. Mr. Ng from the Transport Department. Thank you, Chairman. I thank Mr. Chan Siu-hung's concern as well. concerning overnight parking by commercial vehicles at PTIs. At the panel on housing meeting last year, some members asked whether commercial vehicles can be parked in PTIs as well. That's in Queen's Hill, a question asked by Mr. Edward Lau. Subsequently, the housing department has discussed the matter with the bus companies. At the end, buses were allowed to be parked as the PTI to accommodate the early morning departures. So we will do the same for this project as well. For commercial vehicles, the PTI is simply too small. We can only allow buses and public minibuses to park overnight. If there are no more questions, I now put the proposal to vote. With those in support of the proposal set out in paper PWSC 2025 and 612, raise their hands. Those against the proposal, please raise your hands. I think most of the members in the vote supported the proposal. The proposal is approved. On whether the Finance Committee should have further discussion on the proposal, in accordance with paragraph 41A of the PWSC procedures, I now put to vote the following resolution: that this subcommittee suggest further discussion of the proposal in PWSC 2025-612 by the Finance Committee. I remind members, if the motion is passed, that means that we are suggesting further discussion of the proposal by the FC. If it is negative, that means we do not recommend further discussion of the paper by the FC. With those in favor of the question, please raise their hands. Those who object, please raise their hands. I think most of the members in the vote object to the question. The question is negative. We do not recommend further discussion of paper PWSC 2025-612 by the Finance Committee. In relation to the funding proposals approved today, they are expected to be submitted to the Finance Committee for their scrutiny in July or afterwards. The next meeting will be held at 8:30 a.m. to 10:30 a.m. on the 2nd of July this year. Please be on time. Once again, I thank the administration and the members for attending this meeting. Now the meeting is adjourned.